It's like it doesn't. Want to register. So annoying. Let me. Yeah, I don't know why my mic does this after every stream. Yeah, I don't know why my mic does this after every stream. Yeah, I don't know why my mic does this after every stream. Yeah, I don't know why my mic does this after every stream. Like, that shit is so fucking annoying. It makes my balls, like, fucking... Makes me want to pull my hair out. Like, that's how annoying that shit is with my mic. Holy shit! Alright, now let's get into it. So, I definitely been seeing clips all day about Steve and Crowder and Nick doing a show together. So you already know we're gonna break that down first, and then of course we're gonna end the show with Myron and his Ohio State, because you know they did a fucking marathon at Ohio State. God damn it! So we still got a lot of that to watch. Anyway, to break down. Anyway, but yeah, we're gonna get right into it. Appreciate everybody for stopping by. Let's go.
The bitch shaking it, showing it. You this, you that. We laughing at them together. Oh! So stop treating these mother like they mean something.
Let's go to TikTok. Debate with Steve and Nick. This is a good this is a nice little what's it called? Thumbnail right here. Perfect thumbnail right here. Appreciate you guys.
I don't know.
In what way? How do you mean?
Well, he challenged me to use the N-word on the show, and I did it 3 times, stuck the landing in front of Mark Lamont Hill. They just skimmed past it and then edited it out afterwards.
So no N-word, huh? All right, I'll have to keep that in mind.
Right.
I'll try not to use it.
If he asks you, well, would you say it, or he challenges you, and you do, he pulls a magic trick where people don't hear it.
I'll have to record it on my end. I'll just blast off. Maybe if I say it loud enough, they'll just play it anyway.
Well, I actually did that one time, so we can give you some tips. I had a buzzer every time someone would interrupt, and he edited out the buzzer. Not him, his producers. But Nick, I appreciate you being here, man. You know, right now it's a weird time where people are trying to tell folks they can't actually have conversations, no matter how much you agree, disagree. So if it's, I'd like to kind of set what my expectations are, because I did hear that you said you hope this would be friendly. That's my goal too. The first thing I will say, we got into it with Jillian Michaels. I should say, this week, where she was demanding people disavow, and I'll get to that. I hate, above all else, it's like I feel compelled to defend, no matter who it is, when jokes or statements are mischaracterized, taken out of context. I've had that happen to me. I think it's happened to you quite a bit. I don't want to do that, all right? Hopefully, I think, you know, neither one of us does that. And I also really hate seeing gang-ups. And that's why I killed the mics. If anyone here, I really didn't like seeing what happened with Candace and Tucker, especially after you appeared with Tucker, and it seemed pretty cordial. And then he took pot shots once you were gone. I promise you, I'm not going to do that. That fair?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Okay. And what I really want to do is I want people to actually hear your views for what they actually are. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree. And some people.
It just was annoying how Tucker was like, oh, no, I did not know my dad was in the CIA. And then last year he was literally talking about how his dad was in the CIA and how he was trying to get in the CIA, or his dad was affiliated with the CIA. But he didn't know. Like, there's no way you don't know. Like, there's like, especially if you're trying to get in the CIA, you know something, nigga.
People, you know, they'll be moved,
Stupid.
they'll be convinced, and I want them to make up their own mind and be able to contrast it. So I asked that we're able to do that. I will also say, hey, look, I do want to thank you because, you know, I've been subject to some concerted hit pieces myself, and you didn't join in on the dog pile, and I do appreciate that.
Yeah, got to stand up for a guy. You know, it's bros before hoes.
Oh,
so,
yes.
so I'm with you.
Now, I don't so much appreciate you implying that, you know, I'm bringing talking points from BlackRock or the Israel lobby, considering I've been sued by BlackRock and even Rumble had to fight back. So I think let's just make sure we take each other's opinions at face value. I don't think that you're paid for to say anything that you're saying, and I can tell you definitively that I've never taken a dime from an outside entity, nonprofit, or, you know, foreign interest. Is that good?
Yeah, I believe you. Sounds good to me.
Okay, all right. Also, I want to make sure we can issue so we're not mischaracterized. A lot of people watching. This is the last kind of ground rule. I want to kind of address each issue point by point. I'm going to avoid point stacking or just go rapid fire because people will use that, take it out of context. You know, people go, and Nick wiggled out of this, and they do that with me. I want no one to mischaracterize anything. So with that said, I have a couple of rapid fires, but I think you're going to like them, okay?
Okay, yeah, sure.
These are layups, and I mean rapid fire, and then I want to give you the floor.
Sure.
Nick, I think there's some misconceptions of you. I've heard this said. Can you clear the air? Nick Fuentes, do you hate all Jews, sir?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't know why people say that, but that's why they're calling him an Israel shield now. It's because he doesn't hate all Jews, which is understandable. Because if you're a Christian, there's no way you could hate everybody, which is what I be trying to tell people in my Instagram comments. It's like, we can't be Christian and hate people. It doesn't make sense.
Do you consider yourself an anti-Semite, a noted anti-Semite?
No.
Okay. Clears that up. Do you believe that white people are superior to all other races on the planet?
No.
Okay. Do you want to eradicate all non-whites from the United States?
No.
Okay. Well, Barry Weiss will be very happy to hear that. No doubt she's watching. And then because this happens a lot, right? It's Tucker did this with you. Fed. Nick Fuentes, are you in fact a Fed?
No.
Okay. I'm going to get through these rapid fire really quickly. They're actually, there's not much. So this week, Jillian Michaels will be on the show next week while you're doing Pierce Morgan Censored. And
We gotta watch that.
she said that we need to disavow you, and specifically said you had said that women either want or need to be raped. Now, I looked for this. I have not found as a matter of prescription from you, correct me if I'm wrong, that you believe women should be raped as a matter of policy. Do I have that right?
I like that he's doing this though, because this is making people see like that everybody is just a jackass and they just be saying shit about this nigga.
Yeah, you're correct on that. Yes.
Okay. All right. So she's wrong. She's just an angry lesbian. Got it. Now, finally, this one might surprise people because I know you and Charlie Kirk were sort of rivals, as you've described. Been a lot of controversy floating around that, and people often say that you blame the Jews for everything. Do you believe the Jews killed Charlie Kirk? That's one of the conspiracies out there right now. What's your position on that?
I don't believe that. As it stands right now, I think it was Tyler Robinson.
Yeah, okay, me too. And if there's something else, I hope that we find out. But I think a lot of people would just sort of toss you in that lot. Okay, I think we've cleared that up. So look, there's some people who might be new to you here. I know you've told your story quite a few times. Some people here may not have heard your background. Tell folks out here your story. How did you come to your current positions?
Well, I appreciate the rapid fire intro because that is my reputation. That's what people say is that I'm pro-rape, want to kill everybody, whatever. So
I told you you'd like them.
Audience. Yeah, I did, and I appreciate the opportunity because my audience knows that, but maybe your audience might not, or other people might not. So I actually appreciate that. And as far as how I came to my views, I've told the story many times. I'll give you kind of the shorter version. and feel free to jump in or ask me questions or clarify. But I was a fairly normie conservative in high school. I was very political since I was 12 years old. And like everybody in those days, you know, there wasn't a lot of stuff on social media, like conservative informational content. Right. And so what you had was PJ Media, you had the Hoover Institute, you know, you had things like this. And that's kind of how I got acclimated into conservative politics. And Prager University, all that kind of stuff. And I would say that I was about as mainstream as it gets. I was pro-Israel, pro-free market, fiscal conservative, basically libertarian is what I would say about myself. And then the Trump election kind of just hit me like a train. And I had a series of realizations about the media, about immigration and demographic change in America, what the political implications would be for that in elections, but also just in society. And then obviously the biggest and most controversial one is I really love the idea of America first. Trump said that at his inaugural. He said that at the RNC. And when I heard that, I said, that's me. Like, more than I'm a libertarian or even a conservative, I'm that. I'm America first.
Right.
But again, that's what he won everybody off of. Yeah, this is his like beginning. We watched this before.
Would feel betrayed or feel hung out to dry. And I think that might explain it quite a bit, even if we disagree with your views. Like I told Ben Shapiro in 2016, 2017, I don't think we should be giving any money to Israel. Now, unlike you, I support them over Hamas morally, but I think we should stop funding all sides of the war in the Middle East. And hopefully you find that a reasonable position, whether you agree with it or not. I don't think that's extreme. And Ben didn't seem all too bothered by it. But I also invited him to be on the show, and he was going to, and he disappeared. But I just saw him on with Don Lemon and David Pakman, so I guess they're not so abhorrent.
That's interesting. So he agreed to come on, but then he canceled?
Yeah, it was just sort of informal, you know, by text, and then I just haven't heard back from him. He's been on the show many times, so I'll give you credit, Nick. Candace, Tucker, Ben, Mark, everyone invited on. You're the only one with the balls to show up. I have to give you kudos for that.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate, even though you didn't call me out, I saw the clip.
Well,
I was like, where's my
I knew you would
out?
show up. You're like the candy. You're like the candy man. I say your name 3 times in the camera, you'll show up. No, but we did reach out. I said we didn't want to because we didn't want it to be a conflict. We had already communicated, or my producer had, and I didn't want to call you out as though you were ducking. Those other people have been ducking.
Oh yeah, totally fine. No, and I'm here, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. And, you know, I think we agree on, you know, maybe this is going to sound like I'm kissing your ass a little bit, but I do always feel like you were less bad than all the other people in the conservative movement.
That's high praise.
Well, and I know that sounds lame, but I mean, you know, during the Groyper War, I know that Groyper showed up to your events, and I remember thinking, like, Crowder's he's not even really bad on many of the issues, like Daily Wire, even like Turning Point was 6 years ago. They got a lot better in the intervening, you know, maybe the past 3 years.
Yeah.
But no, but I always think you know, you have balls. So well, I think you're one of the more creditable people in the Con Inc. kind of scene.
Well, come on, don't put me in that scene. That's the thing. I'm not in that scene at all. I've been rejected by that scene, just maybe not quite like you, but quite a bit. I mean, I said the N-word on Piers Morgan. That counts for something. I will say this, though. Yeah, there was a... Did you encourage the Groypers?
Is that it? Is that all you said on Piers Morgan? It's easy to say that. That's like fucking... That's like... We've been past that. Like, we are far past the N-word, Steven. This nigga telling us, I said the N-word on Piers Morgan. Nigga, are you talking about who we need you to be talking about is what's going on?
To go, or was that their own thing? That's just to clear the air.
You know, I don't know. So long ago, you were not one of our major campaigns. We were really focused on Turning Point. So you might have been on the calendar. We threw together a calendar and said, these are all the speaking events in the fall. But we were really focused on Charlie Kirk more than anybody.
All right. Well, then could you give me a word that you're not going to send them to like stand-up events going forward?
Well, I didn't send anybody to a stand-up thing.
Well, it was again an event, but I was just basically I was dressed like Che Guevara, like it was a Halloween. It wasn't the same kind of thing as Ben Shapiro. It might have been Brett Kavanaugh with a beer helmet. Like, it's not the same kind of show.
Sure. Yeah, no, I won't send anybody your way. Right. I promise.
Because here's a funny story before we get into it. Because the Groypers back then, they kind of had like rankings. Do you remember that? Do Do you remember this? Okay.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So
who could forget?
Okay. So you do remember. So I'm glad we're able to talk about this because, and by the way, we'll post all the videos and links, like references, in the description. So if we have a clip or some people can see the whole context. I believe it was at SMU, and I knew they were coming because I was posted on this calendar. And so again, the same way I infiltrated ANFA, I knew every single one of them, and I knew they had rankings. I don't remember. Maybe it was like private admiral, something like that. But here's how I kind of also, it was a little bit of a mind trick, so you'll appreciate this. It was nothing super bad. I said, okay, everyone who agrees with me, you line up on this side of the auditorium. It was like 2,500 seats. Everyone who disagrees here, we're going to go 1 and 1. And I saw all the Groypers line up, and they were supposed to go in a sequence, like private to general. The last second before we go, oh, we have to change something in the venue, and we swapped the lines so that the wrong guy went first. And I remember in your groups back then, or not your groups, but wherever the group, at a Facebook group, one of them said, did you see I asked a question last night? And they were like, you were a stuttering, disgraceful fool. You are not amongst us. And they booted him. They drummed him out of the corps, and then it was off the list. So,
I remember we had generals. We didn't have, maybe they did that on their own. We had generals, and it was sort of tongue in cheek. We were a little ironic about it. But no, but I remember the tricks you guys were pulling. It was pretty, that was pretty clever. I'll give you that. It was pretty clever. That was a good counteroffensive. You were
tricking, and we were tricking. And the truth is, I just wanted to do some fun stuff. All right. So since we got through that, look, America first. I identify as a conservative, as a nationalist. I wear that since it became a pejorative. Like, I thought that was sort of a default thing for America. So you wouldn't hear me saying nationalist until people were like, nationalist means you're a supremacist. I'm like, well, okay, well, then I'm a nationalist. Now I have to claim it because, of course, I want America to do best. Since you, I know, are very clearly America first, let me ask you, what do you love most about America?
Well, I love that we're a superpower. I love that because I really do believe that, when you look at the history of Western civilization, I love the idea of an empire. I love the idea of the Roman Empire, the Spanish Empire, British Empire. And I love the idea that we just have this crazy productive capacity, huge population, huge resources. I like the power of America. That's something I've really been liking a lot lately.
Okay. And of course, we don't want to take that for granted. Obviously, the power of America, like that switches in a nanosecond as far as history. Is there anything else that stands out to you aside from the power? I mean, if not, we can move on to the next.
Yeah, I mean, I love political liberty. I like the Constitution. I like our culture. I like that we're like a pan-European empire. I like that, because when you compare us to Europe, you look at Europe and it's sort of petty and small, and they're squabbling and they're fighting, between these little towns and villages. And I like that there's just this sense of nationhood in America between European Christian people and other people too, of course. But for the most of our history, it was mostly the Europeans. But, I mean, there's a lot of things I like about America.
Yeah, that's where I would already disagree with you because I was raised in Quebec, which is much more European. And I think Europe kind of...
I must say, Crowder is Canadian.
Sucks. I'm not a big...
Why?
Well, because there's far less freedom. I mean, in Quebec and a lot of these European nations, they had an enforced denominational form of Christianity, which didn't work out. That breeds atheism. I believe that Quebec is possibly the most unchurched population in the industrialized or Western world, even though Catholicism was a state-enforced, provincially enforced denomination. I think we're better than Europe. That's why we left. But I do understand that the founders, obviously, were largely white, Christian, European. I mean, Protestant, obviously. I know you and I, we'll quibble about that, but that is the basis here. It doesn't mean that Catholics aren't welcome. But let me ask you, what about the founding, like founding fathers? Is that something? Because I know you have opinions kind of on both sides of that, and I think they're more nuanced. But is that a big part of what you like?
I love the founding fathers. I think they're brilliant. I love George Washington. I love Hamilton. I like John Adams. I think they're remarkable people. So, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Like that.
Political liberty. Can you kind of explain, I guess, that a little bit? Because that's where I know you've said that you differ with conservatives. And I don't want to mischaracterize you. I understand you've said that you're not, quote, unquote, conservative. That's not you identify as America first. So political liberty, what does that mean?
I would say I'm more reactionary than conservative. That's why I don't mean when I say I'm not conservative that I'm something else. And so... You know, as far as political liberty goes, I like that in our country, we have a generally permissive climate. I think, of course, that's gone too far in some ways. But I do like that we have a free press. I like that we have the right to own guns. I am a capitalist. I'm not an ideological free market person, but I like that we have private property. I like we can own what we earn. And on some level, I like that we have a republic. I'm very into the idea that we have Republican sovereignty. You know, that we have rights. They're protected by God. The Constitution respects that also. Okay. And I would say, because I could kind of see maybe, I don't know if you're comfortable with this, if I could go a little further here.
Sure. I mean, look, yeah, go wherever you want. And as long as you're comfortable with me disagreeing and understanding that it's meant to be fair, but I'll let you know where I do.
Yeah, because maybe I could see where you're going with this. You know, I'm really not like a totalitarian. I don't want a police state, you know, to the extent that people say these things about me, like you're a fascist, you're a communist, or a socialist. I'm very much not in favor of that sort of thing. I just think that, you know, in the past 30 years, we've gone a little bit too far in the other direction. That's all. No,
and I wouldn't disagree with that last part, by the way. For example, I think it's very reasonable to say, you know what, maybe OnlyFans isn't a good thing. When you have libertarians going, oh yeah, if they ask for identification to prove you're of age to get pornography, the next thing you know, they're going to take your guns away. I'm like, yeah, I think that being 18 to get hardcore pornography kind of makes sense. So if addressing the hardcore libertarian sort of ideology, I would agree. If it goes towards like a theocracy or something like that, which I know you've discussed, I would disagree. And look, I want to play this because, of course, everyone's going to ask me to ask you this about the Tucker Stalin clip. So what I want to do is play it, and then I know that you've already explained it more recently. I want to play a longer clip in context and then give you the floor, because otherwise people say, why did he softball him, and not ask about Stalin. Here's the clip for those who haven't seen it from Tucker Carlson.
So it was like late December. It's actually funny. It was December 18th. I remember because that's an important date to me. And it's Joseph Stalin's birthday.
Oh.
I'm a fan.
You're a fan of Stalin?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was an admirer. But we don't need to go into that. I guess.
Well, that's, okay, let's get back to it. We'll circle back to that.
And then he called you a gay fed. No, I'm kidding, but pretty much that's what he did. People are mad at him for softballing. I think he didn't. I think that would be fair to press. I just think he was fundamentally dishonest in a lot of ways, because the second you left, it was a different Tucker again. Is that a fair assessment? I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, I had the same experience with Candace. I went out there because him and I had beef. Me and Tucker had been privately and then publicly beefing for years. And you know, he called me on the phone over the summer. And we talked a little bit, and then somebody arranged, Alex Jones was a part of it, and somebody else kind of put this together. I went out.
Wait.
Dinner for
Alex
3 hours.
Jones was the mediator?
He was.
You two kiss and make up. All right, come on, this is enough. I mean, I can't imagine him being the middle ground, but okay.
He's a sweet guy, you know. He's a
teddy bear.
Guy. Yeah. So he didn't want to see us fighting because he loves Tucker, he loves me. He kind of put it together for us, and so I go out there, we have dinner, we do the show, and at no point during the show or during the dinner was it really even contentious. Was there really even an explicit disagreement? We had some disagreements, but he kind of tried to avoid those. I don't think that he was very forceful or direct about those. And then I went on my show the next day and said, yeah, it was a great interview. I thought it was really nice, and maybe we're on the same page now. And then every single interview that he has done since then, he doesn't say my name without calling me an anti-Semite. He's going and doing the circuit, and every show that he goes on, he says, you know, Nick is really talented and this and that, but I don't agree with his anti-Semitism and Jew hatred.
Bro, it's a fed for real. Imagine you literally had a conversation with this nigga before you had these conversations, and he literally told you, I don't hate them all. I just see an overwhelming proportion of them running certain things that are ruining my country. Like, that doesn't mean he hates them all.
And I'm like, okay, so where was that during the dinner? Where was that during the show? I didn't hear that during the whole thing. I'm an anti-Semite now, and I wish he would have brought that up during the discussion, because I would have loved to discuss that or to dispute that or whatever. But it's like you said, I got a completely different Tucker after the fact. In all these other shows, he's going around and telling everybody, you know, that like it's the making of a murderer.
Right.
Like, I could see why people like him, even though he's
like
so awful.
Like you're the Averys. Yeah, you know, you got them Jews there. Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And Candace will make another show about that like 9 years later. Okay, so that's fair. Did you see she did like something about making a murderer? I was like, what is this? Like, this is very late. Okay, but going back to that's the clip that people say, ask him about Stalin. And I would have, in Tucker's shoes, asked you about Stalin. Now, I've seen you on another show explain it more recently. Now, I can't play the whole clip because it'll be really long, but I want to play a longer one and then allow you to provide any missing context. I can't remember the name of this, something Danny D, Johnny G, play it.
Tommy G.
Tommy G, I was close.
Agree you have some hilarious moments, but there was a moment from the Tucker Carlson interview I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
You mentioned Stalin. You're a fan of his work?
Yes.
Was that serious or a joke?
That wasn't a joke. But, you know, it's like anything else. I love history, and I love stories. And to me, Joseph Stalin is an extremely compelling figure. I would say more, you'd be surprised to hear this, than Hitler. Everybody pegs me as like a Hitler guy. I'll tell you, and I'm not saying this to pander, I'm not saying this, you know, because I care about what you think of me. I really don't even know that much about Hitler. I never found Hitler to be that interesting. I think that there's narratives about Hitler that are interesting.
I swear I heard something in the background. Am I going crazy? Am I going nuts?
In America, if you talk a certain way about certain issues, they say you're a Nazi, you're Hitler. So it's interesting in that way. But for me, Stalin is the far more compelling figure. And I say that because, you know, while everybody focuses on Hitler, Stalin is a person who takes Russia, which is the most backwards country in Europe at the beginning of the 20th century, serfs and peasants and you know, just all around immiseration and poverty. He takes a country like this, and by the time he dies, it's a nuclear empire. It's a global superpower. It's like the most unbelievable story in the history of mankind. And so I don't think he's a good person. He's an evil person. He's one of the villains of history. But in terms of his effects, he's an effective ruler. And I think that's interesting.
Okay. Now that clip goes on, we'll make the link available. I don't want to do an interview where everyone's watching you watch you. But so with that, and I was asked about this on Piers Morgan. And I, again, asked to condemn, you know, Stalin. I said, look, I don't know. He could have meant, and by the way, I don't know if you have a cold. I have a halls in my throat right now. I notice everyone's a little bit sniffly. I said, he could have been saying he's fascinated. Like, for example, I've been going down a rabbit hole of Stalin versus Trotsky, like how much they hated each other, which would seem odd to us because they're very similar. The spoiler alert, it's two assholes fighting. That's pretty much all it is. And I would be curious to ask him about that. So when people say disavow without having the full context, I think that's wrong. Now, that said, my question to you would be, I know that you have said we need a Catholic theocracy or a Christian theocracy. I've heard the word dictatorship, correct me if I'm wrong. So I would ask you, since the end point seems much more similar to where Stalin reached, just swap atheism for Catholicism or Christianity, would you be able to name, or is there any one thing that you think America, like concretely, should copy about Stalin's rule or methods to get there?
Not his methods, because like I said, he's an evil person, or a murderer, and genocidal, arguably with the famine. I mean, I think it's pretty clearly intentional that they were trying to kill all those people there. And so I want to make that clear. Sometimes I feel like it's almost childish, and I'm not saying that about this interview, but just in general, when people say, wait, but he was a bad guy, it's like, I know he's a bad guy. Like, I know
everybody's a bad guy. Once you niggas wake up, everybody's a bad guy. Everybody's a bad guy. Oh my God.
He was evil. And I suppose the thing that I find maybe more compelling about Stalin as a ruler is the way that he industrialized the country. I'm very interested in this because that is, among the other things that I talk about, a very important problem in the country is that we're deindustrialized. Yeah. And what Stalin did, and I said that in that clip and in other clips too, he takes a country that has no industry. And he literally, and with brutal, evil methods that I would not, I don't replicate, I don't support that. But he does take the country and drag it into the 21st century. And he does that by bringing in heavy industry. The 5-year plans, the collectivization of the farms, it was about prioritizing heavy industry so that they could eventually build ships and planes and tanks and, you know, the things that they needed to fight the war. So,
but it was about seizing industry. And it was about doing it by force. I mean, you know, secret police, the party purges, the show trials. So if you say the industrialization of the country, how do you separate that from, I mean, the only methods were largely evil, or certainly his calling card methods, right? That's where people would say, okay, if you point to him as an example, is there anything worthy of emulating other than, because you could point to other countries that have industrialized, including the United States.
Well, I don't think that is necessary. I think because it starts with the idea that a country, an empire, needs industry. You need to be able to make things. We don't make things. We don't even make the machines that make things anymore. China makes all the things. And so starting from the idea where Stalin says in the 20s, he says, we're either going to do in 15 years what it would normally take us 100 years to do, or we're going to die. Our country will not exist anymore because we are encircled. And I feel like America's in sort of a similar position where we need to race ahead of China or else we are going to be destroyed. We need industry back in the country. And I don't believe in taking grain to feed the factory workers and enslaving people in gulags. But I do think the government needs to set. It's sort of like when JFK said, we're going to go to the moon in 10 years. I like the idea, this ambitious idea of we're going to catch up in 10 years. We're just going to go out there and do it. We're just going to build it. And I don't support, you know, killing people. I don't think you need to kill people to achieve that. But I like the idea of urgency, setting targets, having a national strategy, and, you know, and doing it for the sake of power projection.
Well, and I agree, by the way, industrialization, right, is good. We went through that in America quite a bit before Russia. The reason they had to play catch up is because it was an awful place and they had to do it by force. So my question is, am I mischaracterizing, and everything that I ask is genuine here because I'm trying to see where we disagree. Because I think Stalin is a fascinating historical character. You're talking to a guy, we did the great Diktoff, where we did brackets for 3 days of Hitler, Stalin, Pol Pot, Mao. Funniest one was Papa Doc in Haiti because he sucked. Pinochet, who wasn't all wrong. And we were very clear about this. And I think Mao ended up winning. Might have been Pol Pot, though the number wasn't as high, but he was just really dumb and really brutal, which is a bad combination. How could you get, if we're talking about now, to Stalin's industrial results without Stalin's methods? If you want to get to a Catholic, first off, have you said Catholic theocracy? Is that, am I misquoting?
I might have said it, but I don't believe in a Catholic theocracy. I think that the government should be Christian, but not a theocracy.
Okay. Not a dictatorship either?
We might need a very powerful executive for a short amount of time. I think that's maybe unavoidable.
Okay.
But not an ideological totalitarian state, no.
So how do you get to that in the industrialization that you talk about with Stalin? How do you get it? How do you get there?
I think that you need tariffs. I think you need subsidies. I think you need a massive public works program, something like the New Deal. And I know you're probably not a fan of that because I know you're a huge free market guy, but I think that one of the things the free market doesn't do well is it doesn't allocate resources efficiently on like a long-term timeline. You know, in a long-term timeline, America needs to have a ton of industry to be able to support its Navy, to be able to protect supply chains and trade routes. And the free market has not been able to accomplish that. So I think that the government needs to intervene in this case and basically say, like, we're not going to import these manufactured goods from China. We have to make them ourselves. We need.
Yeah. And like Nick said, that's what's really killing us is that we don't make our own shit. We import everything from China. So with us importing everything from China, since we don't make our own shit, if China says, hey, fuck you guys one day, we're going to be fucked. So I agree with Nick.
To subsidize them. And maybe we bring people on, you know, onto the dole of the state. and a public works program to accomplish some of these things. So I believe in an intervention from the state to do that.
Well, okay. So I understand. By the way, tariffs, I understand, and especially when you look at the revenue they'll be generating. I don't think that's an infringement of the free markets. I think it's a correction of an unfair market, of a market where we've been fleeced. So I think we agree on that. Subsidies are massive public works. I mean, we have a debt. Is it 39 trillion? I haven't looked at the clock recently. So I certainly wouldn't say that we haven't been subsidizing things. We absolutely have, and we can't afford it. And the old joke, right, in Russia is they pay us to look like we're working, and we look like we're working. Like they look like they're paying us, we look like we're working. We've done this here in the States. I mean, if you go back to FDR, and maybe you're a fan of FDR's approach. Certainly Barack Obama, the biggest modern spending package. I was around for that. Shovel-ready jobs was awful. And same thing for Russia. I mean, if you throw enough bodies and human suffering at something, you can get something done. But even then, it was still significantly behind the world that was more free, the United States. So where have we not done it? Because I look at it and I go, well, we have been subsidizing almost everything. I agree with you on China. I agree with you on tariffs. I think that's a huge threat. What would that look like?
Well, I don't think we've been subsidizing industry. I'm not saying just like subsidies across the board. I mean, we need to actually subsidize and prioritize the industries that we need in the country. So like, for example, the CHIPS Act, I think that was a great thing. I don't think it was enough, and I don't think it was comprehensive, but I want more things like that. Like, there's no reason why they're doing it in Arizona. They're bringing TSMC over to Arizona. They're building a chip fabrication facility. We need that. And I think the government should give tax breaks or just straight up give subsidies to the companies that are going to do that. And I think that we need aggressive trade negotiations. I guess maybe where we differ ideologically is that I want a very smart government. I liked what Doge did. I like the idea of bringing people from the private sector into the government. And even Trump said that in 2016 to work on trade deals, to work on, for example, China steals all our intellectual property. They steal all of the developments that we have. We need people that know about technology almost in a technocratic way, like true experts guiding our trade policy, guiding in some ways our economic policy, setting a benchmark that it's like, we need like 10% of the economy or 15 or 20% of the economy to be productive in 5 or 10 years. We need to be making ports, ships, or we need to have countries in our orbit that can do it for us, like South Korea or Japan. But we just need people that are in charge that are, kind of aware of this problem. So I guess that's maybe the difference.
No, I don't think that's the difference. I can outline maybe the difference based on what you just said. I don't have a problem with tariffs. Sure. I know what you're talking about with the CHIPS Act. I agree. And I think a big problem is, absolutely, Chinese stealing intellectual property. That's why I think they're a huge threat. What I see, I mean, then you could point, though, to like American auto manufacturing, which has been abysmal. I mean, industries that have been heavily subsidized. I mean, if you look at insurance industries, pharmaceutical companies, if you look at energy companies, I mean, you remember also about Solyndra, green energy companies.
Totally.
Every company that's been heavily subsidized and regulated tends to be less efficient and it tends to be more expensive. But we do need to protect certainly things that are, I would say that chips are a matter of national security. But my thing there is, you say you like Doge. Well, I don't know why you think I would differ. That was largely, axing things. You've just mentioned stuff that really for the first time has been done under this administration. And where we differ is I go, is it perfect? No. Is it a step in the right direction compared to Biden, compared to Barack Obama? Yeah. And then I know that you've also talked about having to burn it all down. So where I differ is, you've said you're reactionary, or I've heard you use the term maybe accelerationist. Well, accelerate toward what? Because if that's what you want, and I agree with you, we're getting more of that than ever before. So how would you get there, and why would you burn down the progress that's being made?
Well, I'm not an accelerationist. I think that I think that's sort of misguided, because if we're, and I agree with you, accelerating towards what? That's the operative question. So that's why I'm not an accelerationist. I think that to make things worse is only basically to vote in favor of chaos and death and potentially civil war, low-level political violence. And I think you're rolling the dice with that. So I'm with you on that. As far as the Trump administration is concerned,
okay, can I pause you?
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
And I don't want to interrupt, but like I said, I want to address kind of the points individually.
No, totally. Yeah.
Feel free. Okay. And hopefully you think this is fair, because I really do want to be, and I know that I disagree with you on some fundamentals here, but you did say that Kamala Harris would be a better choice. And you did take billboards out against Donald Trump and told people not to vote in certain elections. That would be, and maybe you didn't use the term accelerationist, but you said at least then that would sort of ignite what we need, because it's a uniparty, it's all the same, right? So I view that as accelerationism, whereas I see where we agree, where we find progress, I would argue is better than 4 years of Kamala. And I would argue that we were at the precipice of, really, we were looking at descending into the abyss, 15 million on the low end, illegal aliens, and not to mention the legal immigration problem. Add another 10 million with Kamala Harris, we no longer have a country, where you and I would both agree. So that's where I don't understand your position.
Yeah, well, let's sit in this for a minute. So first of all, and I just want to clarify, I know you know this, but maybe your audience doesn't. I never told people to vote for Kamala. I didn't vote for Kamala. I never told people to vote for Kamala. I didn't endorse Kamala. My plan in and again, as long as we're in good faith, I'm going to explain to you my thought process on this last year. It looked at one point like this was going to be a very contentious election, like it would be very close. It turned out not to be, and eventually it became clear that it wouldn't be. But it seemed like maybe this election would come down to one state, like Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania, one of the 3 Rust Belt states. And my problem in 24 is that Trump was not promising an immigration moratorium. In fact, he was saying the opposite. He said that he would staple green cards to diplomas, which is a very famous policy. It's been around for decades, and Democrats and Republicans have said, we're going to give green cards to every foreign student. I said, that's a disaster. That's terrible. And then the other thing is, there was a rumor that he had a quid pro quo arrangement with Miriam Adelson that he would allow Israel to annex the West Bank and intervene in the war with Iran. And so those were kind of my 2 issues. As I said, if we elect Trump, we're going to get all these Chinese and Indians. They're going to get green cards, and we're going to get H-1Bs because that's what Silicon Valley wants, and we're going to get a war with Iran. And so I looked at it this way. I said, if the America Firsters rise up and sort of tell Trump, here's the ultimatum. You can come out and say you're against the H-1Bs and the F-1 and green cards, and you could say you're not going to bring us to war in Iran, and we'll vote for you. But if you don't, we can't vote for you. And that was kind of the idea. It was like a contract with the Trump team. Now, ultimately, Trump became basically, his advantage grew to be so big that he wasn't worried about losing in one of those states.
Yeah, that's why it was so weird when he was running, because he was doing everything opposite from what he did the first time.
And I felt that way. I said, we don't have leverage anymore because he's leading by so much. It's clear he's going to win. And that's why we sort of abandoned it in the middle of it. But aside from, so that's where that came from.
Just to clarify, abandoned what?
Abandoned that project, the Groyper War II. Because we were going to go to Michigan, and we were literally going to knock on doors and hand out leaflets and stuff. And we said, you know what, let's just not anymore, because he's going to win anyway. So we bought one billboard.
You were going to knock on the doors and tell people to vote for Trump, the Groypers in Michigan?
Yeah, no, to sign on to something like a pledge that would say, we will not vote for Trump unless. That was kind of the idea. And we sort of spun that up, but we abandoned it when it became clear that he would win.
Okay. And I understand that, by the way. I understand the idea of holding the representatives accountable. I mean, that's why we have primaries. But hopefully that's a part of your strategy, because a lot of people just don't run in primaries, and that's a viable option. But I do remember what caught me off guard, you saying that Kamala Harris was a better choice. And I remember part of what you said was because Trump, if he's elected, legitimizes the system. And that would be worse. You didn't want Trump to be elected because it would legitimize the system. Explain what you meant by that, because that sounds to me like you want to delegitimize and almost revolution instead of Trump.
Well, and here's the thing. I think that Trump is obviously the better president if you're just taking like all the nominal figures, like fewer illegal immigrants, he secured the border, the economy's going to be better, the government's going to be more efficient. Like, so, I mean, we're in agreement on that. Here's the problem. And I try to make people think about it in these terms. It's
sure.
And I don't want this to sound like a cop-out, but I'm trying to get people to think, which is that
right.
Trump gets elected, and let's think about what happens on day number 2. Whereas in 2020, everybody said the election is rigged. Like 86% of Republicans said, oh, the election was BS. Now,
it was close to half of Democrats, too, I think.
Yeah, it was substantial. It was across the board. Now nobody believes that. And whereas at one time people believed like, oh, like the system really needs to be overthrown. Like we really need radical change. Now they're saying, oh, Trump won. Oh, I feel relieved. Now we're okay. And look at the things that Trump has done. And we're going to get in. I can tell we're going to get into some of these things. The Epstein files, bombing Iran. And I'm not gish galloping. I'm just giving a little list of things I don't like. The H-1B visas, the 600,000 Chinese students.
Yeah.
All these things happen. And because they're happening under Trump, he is legitimizing them. And he's legitimizing the moneyed interests that are responsible for them. And I do think that deflates a lot of the fervor for change that existed before. And I just think sometimes, you know, is that necessarily better in the long term? I don't disagree that Trump is, you know, there's a very big pragmatic benefit, but in the long term, I worry about that.
Yeah, I definitely think it's better in the long term. And okay. I agree with you completely on 600,000 Chinese students. I don't know if you saw, we did an entire hour on that. H-1Bs. Yeah. I was throttled as a result from, well, I can't say Elon Musk directly, but I believe I perhaps called him a retard, whatever it was. I insulted him quite publicly. And, you know, for my troubles, made $27 in the course of a month on X. Ashley Sinclair made like 26 grand in 2 weeks. Who knew, right? That's kind of odd. Yeah, I agree with you on H-1Bs. I will tell you, worse than 600,000 Chinese students would be another 15 to 20 million illegals and changing the census rule, which is what we were looking at, where that redistricts the entire map. And there's no chance to any type of conservative, Republican, nationalist, populist being elected again. And I do think that there was a lot of progress made. I would go, I mean, a lot of wins, not only the border. 99% is not marginal to me as far as reduction. I think that's pretty significant. But I'd like to go to, I understand where you're coming from. I understand that perspective. But I also don't understand what the threshold is as far as, okay, burn it all down, or we want to delegitimize the system. Because I know we lived through that, like you just said. Republicans thought it was an illegitimate election. I did as well. Not a whole bunch of folks at the Daily Wire back then, so I think we were on the same page. And I also, obviously, when we had the lockdowns, all of that, we then lived through 4 years of Biden, right? So it was already seen as not legitimate. We saw the results. I think the results of not electing another Biden is better. But I would like to roll a clip, because I think it's in this vein and might help set it up. It was where you discussed, Epstein, too. That's the one thing. Of course, I absolutely agree. I don't know if you know, I recreated the Epstein cell down to the millimeter and tried to hang myself with a force meter.
I saw that, yeah.
It's possible, not likely. So I thought it was a huge mistake. I think Pam Bondi's an idiot. And I mean actually like an idiot, like she potentially could be a mongoloid, using the term hate speech. She's a moron, and I've always said that, using the term, and that role.
I told you guys that, though. There's no, if bro got dirt on Trump, there's no way he's dead. There's no way he's dying. Bro's gonna live out the rest of his life, happy, sitting on a fucking island somewhere. Like, y'all niggas are dumb if you think he's dead.
Rollout was terrible. That doesn't undo the things that a lot of people who elected not just Trump, but the cultural wins that they want. I think there's a lot of good there, and I don't think burning it down is the best approach. But here you mentioned a new potential.
See, and that's y'all problem. You don't want to burn shit down. You're too complacent with what has been given. And unfortunately, that's just sometimes what you have to do. Sometimes you have to burn the shit down to raise it back up, and it's okay. Sometimes you got to start all over. It's all like that, and that's what's scaring me about Steve, is that he's scared to start over. What you scared to? Why the fuck you scared to start over for, bro? Shit's fucked up already. Why are you scared to start over? Like, it's either gonna get it's only gonna get worse before it gets better. So we might as well start over now, get that shit over with, and then by the time, I'm telling you, I feel like he's scared.
So coalition, and I think sort of lay out a prescription as to how to go forward. And I'd like to ask you about it. And again, we'll make the link to the full show available so that no one mischaracterizes anything.
Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie working together against the interests to compel the files. What do you think that has? A 90% approval rating? If you had progressive Democrats and nationalist Republicans working together, let's say to compel the release of the Epstein files, what kind of approval rating do you think that has? 90%? And what if they got together and they opposed foreign aid to Israel? What approval rating do you think that would have? 90%? Do you think that that Republicans or independents running under that brand, do you think that that would become more popular or less popular over time? 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16. It snowballs. And we need to propel someone into the White House that is just a populist. If the right can come down on health care and on a social safety net and maybe on some subsidies for education, and if the left can come down on the anti-white open border stuff and they can agree that we have a country, that party will win 90% of the vote and rule for a century. That's the compromise. That's the populist compromise.
Okay, and I think you were, you articulated that pretty well. I would say Epstein already has a coalition. Everyone voted to release the files except Clay Higgins, who is a punchline, deservedly so. Like, that's the first time everyone knew Clay Higgins. Like, he really must love pedophiles. I wish I loved anything as much as he loves defending sex islands. I would like to hear your prescription for how that works, because I would say this. If the only compromise was the left on immigration, and if I believe that there was any semblance of a reality in which they compromise on immigration, and compromising on free markets to varying degree, okay. But what do we do with the Ro Khanna on the Second Amendment, on the First Amendment, on transing the kids, on reparations that someone like a Ro Khanna or any member of the Democratic Party, but Ro Khanna specifically says is a priority economically and morally, on abortion. What do you do with all of the other compromises that aren't listed? How does that coalition work, and bring me through the end point?
Well, and I'm not a huge fan of either of them, actually. You could also say Thomas Massie on H-1Bs. You could say Thomas Massie on immigration also.
You could say him on Israel also, as far as his biggest donor. It's not AIPAC, but a lot of influence.
Certainly. Yeah. Certainly. But what I'm referring to is maybe more something like Trump 2016, who is basically a populist. And you look at Trump in 2016, and to me, that's kind of the prescription, where it's like in 2016, he comes out, and he says, we're going to get the money out of politics. He says, I'm not going to take donor money. I'm not going to take super PAC money. I don't listen to special interests. He says, law and order, close the border. As far as health care, he didn't even give a plan. He said, we'll just take care of everybody. He said, we'll get rid of the lines around the states, and we'll just take care of everybody. Who even knows what that means? And he says, we're going to put America first in foreign policy. Now, I think that, here's the thing. I'm under no illusions. We're not going to win 80% of the left or 40% or even 30%. But I'm thinking that if we can win, because I think there are a lot of people on the far left or even some of the abundance liberals, they're getting tired of a lot of the far left too. There's a lot of these liberals in the center that are saying, how are you going to have public transportation when you have people getting stabbed in the neck and there's no police? Like, we can't defund the police and even have these cities that we want to have. I think there's a lot of people on the far left, too, that are saying, maybe the woke has gone too far.
I'm sorry, was that a quote? Did Ro Khanna say that, or was that just a general sentiment?
No, I'm not talking specifically about Ro Khanna. That's just an example.
Because when I hear it, I almost thought you said I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like something a liberal would say, like stab the cop in the neck.
No, when people are being stabbed in the neck by like black people, for example.
Oh, that's also something I could hear a leftist supporting. But yes, okay, go on. I just didn't know if it was specific. Okay, yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, fundamentally, it comes down to the fact that, let's just talk about it in general. So that's my prescription. It's like populist Trump, and let's just get a small percentage of the left liberals, who I think have come a long way in the past 5 years since COVID. But I would say that in general, I think maybe where we disagree is I look at this Republican team. What has it actually done for us? because you seem to be defending like, well, we're supposed to vote Republican and we're supposed to say, well, this is better than the alternative.
No.
And he's making these wins. Well, hang on. And I look at it and say, it's been 10 years of Trumpism. And, you know, I know Biden brought them in, but we're 10 million illegals up since Biden, and there's no mass deportations. I look at the wars. We're getting into more wars, not fewer. He wanted to keep us in Afghanistan and Bagram. He's building bases in Syria. We're getting into Venezuela. You know, I look at what we have not done in 10 years, and I say, you know, this is a prescription where it hasn't been working. And so I'm very against this line where you say, well, we're going to vote Republican and we're going to, what exactly? I mean, what's your prescription? If Trump is failing us miserably, what are we supposed to do here?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing is I don't agree that our representatives are all failing us miserably. I think they failed in quite a few ways. If you're talking about like the Johnsons of the world and the Rhinos, absolutely. But the things that you just listed, and I would, again, ask you for your prescription because I give mine Monday through Friday, every day, 11 a.m. Eastern. I've done one on voting, what we need to do. I've done one on immigration, done one on big tech and Section 230. I'm very curious as to your prescriptions so that people can contrast them. You mentioned law and order. I don't know of any president who sent the National Guard in as aggressively when we're talking about D.C. and Chicago. That way you talk about law and order. You're talking about
in Chicago?
Well, I'm saying any effort being made. I know what we've lived through as far as what Ro Khanna would support, Black Lives Matter, the Police and Justice Act. Again,
BLM
I don't think
happened under Trump in 2020.
So let me ask you, what's your prescription? Why hopscotch all the people who I think watching right now would agree with you if they think that you're on board with them on LGBTQ, on immigration, on Second Amendment rights, on First Amendment rights? Why hopscotch then to compromise with someone who has actively fought to destroy all those things like a Ro Khanna? Wouldn't it make more sense to form a coalition with more than half the country who already exists? Because you don't want to take them for granted. Take Trump out of it. I'm talking about the people, the voters. What's your prescription?
I would say that it's a structural problem, which is that the reason, first of all, I mean, we have to deal with the fact that Trump is not delivering. Like, if you don't want to gish gallop, let's just start there. You say, well, I don't think it's a complete failure. Yeah, it is. And you bring up BLM. BLM happened in 2020 because Trump let it happen, because Sean Hannity was calling him every day and saying, this is better for us in November if BLM burns down the cities. So the summer of love happened in 2020 when Trump was president. And then Trump comes back.
No, it started under Barack Obama with going back to Trayvon Martin.
The George Floyd summer of love.
Yeah, it was a continuation.
Well, I think they kind of picked up on it. Don't you think? It wasn't like it was ongoing.
I was there, and I had people on my show back then with Hands Up, Don't Shoot. And I remember the assassination of the Dallas PD. Donald Trump was elected, specifically his first term, because of how disruptive Black Lives Matter was and law and order. And I would say there was significantly more than under Barack Obama. But if you say they're the same, that's just where we disagree.
Well, wait, what are we debating about? I mean, in the George Floyd summer of love, maybe I'm wrong about the calendar. It was in 2020 when Trump was president, and it was the worst, arguably the worst BLM violence, I think, in the 21st century. I think that was worse, actually, than Mike Brown or Trayvon Martin. And Trump was president, and he didn't intervene because he was told it'd be better for him. And now in 2025, there's no National Guard. He chickened out on that. He chickens out on all that stuff. He was going to send him to Chicago, going to send him to every major city. Never happened. Even here. You know, they're doing the deportations in Broadview here in Illinois. They brought in like 400 National Guard, and ICE is still getting chased. And they got boxed in by a bunch of different protesters, one with a semi-automatic rifle. There's no law and order. Irina Zarutska died under Trump. The crime in New York under Trump. The crime in Chicago under Trump. It's a failure. And we're 10 years in. And so you say, what is it going to take? Because we elected him once,
Can I ask you
twice.
something, though, just because this is the point I'd like to address when you say Irina Zarutska, and obviously we've covered that, and I think we're in agreement.
Nick
when you
is cooking.
Look at the judge, and you look at the man who was released, I believe, 14 times, right, under the guise of equity, Black Lives Matter, precisely the kinds of policies that only exist because they have been supported by the radical left who run the entire Democrat Party, right? So, yeah, some of that happened under Trump's watch, and I agree. He's definitely far from perfect, and I think he's failed in a lot of ways. But who has been orchestrating? You talk about these constructionists, right? They want that, and people like Ro Khanna, people who you talk about in your coalition, it's their raison d'etre. So why hopscotch the voters who would not vote for that coalition precisely for the reasons we're discussing? Because they're against all of it, because Trump hasn't done enough to fight. I mean, COVID happened under Trump too. Huge mistakes. Fauci, awful. But I certainly think that 20 million illegal aliens in 4 years is worse than a reduction of 90-something%. I certainly think that the people who orchestrated Black Lives Matter and the people who ran those cities and the people who have blocked ICE from doing anything is worse than the guy sending in ICE with any effort at all.
But let's talk about even that. Why do we get all these people from Venezuela? Because Trump hired John Bolton to destroy Venezuela's economy, and then on his last day in office gave Venezuela temporary protected status. That was one of his last acts as president, and that means they can't be deported. And then you got 6 million Venezuelans in an exodus, and how many of them ended up here? And by the way, Trump ran in 2016 saying, we're going to build the wall and we're going to solve immigration. It didn't happen. There's no wall. He didn't solve it. What he did was executive orders, which Biden immediately overturned when he took power and then brought in 10 million. Okay, so Trump gets elected again. What does Trump do? You're right, he did secure the border. That's true. But we're 10 million deep. That's a little too late. He promised mass deportations. We've had maybe 300,000 deportations this year. Is that going to go up during the midterm elections? Is that going to go up when everybody's running in the primary in 27? I don't see it happening. And either way, it hasn't happened. So this is my frustration where I'm like, I was with you.
I just hate how Steven is just like, no, we're good. He's not really failing. He's not really doing like dang shit. He's not really like, nigga, yes, he is. Are you not like Savage and niggas got the gold spoon? They not in the field. They not really outside.
You in the first term. As in the first term, when I was in college, I was like, yeah, like vote for Trump, never coming down. If he falls short, we'll go on Twitter and tell him to try better. But 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, you know, Republicans have called for our vote all these times and things are not getting better like at all. And that's sort of the frustration where I start to say, let's turn the table around. And I'm not hopscotching over the voters. I want all the right-wing voters. What I want to hopscotch is the donors. I want to hopscotch the party, which is the RNC, which is, Little Tech, Silicon Valley, which is the Israel lobby, which is Wall Street, because they're driving the stuff. Like the reason that Trump is not really what he delivers, or what he promises is because, if you were to deport all these illegal aliens, it's going to be bad for big agriculture, Wall Street, inflation might tick up. And so
Marjorie Taylor Greene's really construction company.
That's right. Yeah, 100%. And that's why I want to bypass.
Okay, so bypass. So, and nobody is saying that President Trump is perfect. And I'm not a micro-political guy, a cultural guy largely. And I think there's been a major shift culturally. I mean, half of all gay characters are going to be going away, and GLAAD is lamenting that. I don't know how much more happy I can get. I think that the replatforming is a big thing, right? I mean, as someone who's been also debanked, demonetized through PayPal, Shopify, all that, very similar to you. The fact that you're able to sit here now and have this conversation, I mean, it took a lot of work from coalition people like me, turning down a $50 million contract and migrating the world's biggest conservative, right-leaning nationalist YouTube channel over to Rumble so that you're able to do that. That's a win, right? And you could look at that like a light switch, deplatformed, including the president himself, replatformed. To me, that's probably the biggest thing. The fact that you are able to sit here and talk when you weren't.
But I got replatformed under Biden. I got my Twitter account back in May 24. Musk bought Twitter in 2022. Right. And Rumble really started to grow after Trump got banned in 21. That's when all the little tech money jumped in because they said, we're going to do True Social, Trump Media Group, Rumble, these things. So, now that Trump is back in office, there's might be more censorship. Like right. You have people
but Elon Musk put you back specifically. He bought that to balance the powers that be. I mean, there was a point in time.
But it wasn't Trump.
But that's the reason for it, right? There's no world in which you're replatformed unless Donald Trump is running again and someone like Elon Musk sees an already existing populist movement. That is important. And right now, this will actually be clips on YouTube. That could never have happened. I mean, I was literally deplatformed for having Carrie Lake on in a midterm. That's why we couldn't stream the elections. So to say that, well, that's because of Biden, are you giving Biden credit for Elon Musk buying X and bringing you back? Because I think that you got to give some credit here if you want to build a coalition. Can you build a coalition with the people going, hey, we are really anti-censorship and we're really hesitant to get back in bed with the party that pushed for all of it? Because there are other people not as popular as you, who've also been deplatformed and replatformed as a result.
No, I'm not giving Biden credit. All I'm saying is you attribute that to Trump or for Republicans being in power. All I'm saying is one's got nothing to do with the other. And actually, it was a response. Musk buying Twitter was a reaction to the overreach of the Democrats because they banned the president from Twitter. And I would add to that also, censorship is a big problem. I don't think we're in the clear with Rumble or Twitter. There's going to be a lot of regulatory. Yeah. And what is Trump doing to solidify this free speech beachhead that you have built, that Elon has built? Nothing. Was that in the big, beautiful bill? Is the FCC getting on top of that? They flirted with doing that in 2020 when they said they were going to do section, what is it, 270 or 280
section
or whatever?
230.
They talked about doing that. They never did it. And so that's my problem where, and I'm with you, like,
well, no, can I just pause that? Because that's kind of in my realm of expertise, because this is something where I've been here this entire time.
Totally.
Right? And not to take credit, but certainly a pioneer in being demonetized and hiring. My biggest expense, especially coming up, was legal outside of payroll, because I saw this type of censorship coming. I'm the only one who was named in the Facebook files. By name. That's how I met my lawyer. The Twitter files, and Susan Wojcicki and Congress women. I don't know if there were any men. I know there were a few women. I think Pelosi and what's her name, the Hirono, the lady from Hawaii who always talks about sex, asking for me to be. Have you ever had sexual relations with someone? That's how she opens every single hearing. It's like, how horny are you, lady? So that is something that I've lived through, and I think you're maybe discounting how bad it can get. And 230 is important, right? I've issued a prescription on how to fix that. And yeah, I'm disappointed that there hasn't been something fully solidified. But I would say there's a reason you're back. There's a reason that people are not afraid to speak out. And people like Trump, people who are more populist, the populists who exist on the right, they listen to their base. And I think it's good that you're pushing him. But what would be enough? In other words, would there be a threshold enough so that you don't just sort of, elope with the Ro Khannas and the Bernie bros of the world?
It's not about eloping. And I would say, what does enough look like? I would know it when I saw it. It would be not like bombing Iran is like a punchline for what Israel wants. That's pretty bad. I would say that not mass deporting people. You don't need to deport 10 million in 1 year, but 1 million per year. And how about anything? And literally anything on free speech. Ron DeSantis had some legislation, and Texas had some legislation about free speech. Could we get something like that, regulatory or legislative? Mm-hmm. I just look across the board, and maybe this addresses the heart of the matter. I sort of look at Trump and I say, I see what you have done for them. Can you bless us in the same way? Because they will move heaven and earth to lower the corporate tax rate. They will move heaven and earth to give $1 trillion for AI, and they will give Saudi Arabia, non-NATO major defense ally. They'll give Qatar a security guarantee. They'll bomb Iran for Israel. They'll bomb Yemen for Israel. What will you do for us? A middle-class tax cut? Will you give us law and order, National Guard, mass deportation? Like, how about pick one, something? So, maybe.
Yeah, and that's the big gripe that a lot of the young people have with Trump, or a lot of people have with Trump, is that you're not doing anything for the American people. We see you doing a lot of shit for other people, and we're like, damn, nigga, can we get a slice, please? It's like we're begging. We're begging for our own money. We're begging for him to give us our own money, to give us what we're supposed to have. Like, it's insane. I was liking Steven in the beginning, but I don't really like the way he's like dick riding Trump right now. Like, oh my God, are you sure? Like, he's not doing that bad. Like, yeah, Crowder, you're fucking hypnotized, my guy. It's fucking crazy. But yeah. Oh my God, not the screen moving over. Shit, watch this. Boom. What the fuck? Oh yeah. Let me fix. Good. Right. Okay. Boom. All right. Yeah. So. Yeah. I really don't like how Crowder was dick riding Trump like this whole live. He's just been riding him. Are you sure he's been doing bad? I don't know. I don't know. Like nigga, do like it's not that bad. Like nah, it's giving. I work for the feds. Now let me stop. It's giving. I be in the Oval Office, but nah. This was a good talk. This was nice to hear different sides of the right, especially people who are like in love with Trump for some reason. And what I mean by in love with Trump, like can't criticize or say he's doing something wrong. But yeah, I like seeing both of these sides. But Nick was just chewing him up. He kept saying, well, but yeah, Nick had an answer for everything he had. So. Everything he had a nice, precise answer to what he had going on. Like he was studying this shit already. It's crazy. But nah. Nice little Steven versus Crowder. I mean Steven versus Nick. We will be back live Monday. I appreciate everybody for stopping by. Make sure you stay safe and pay attention to what you are doing. And I appreciate all y'all. Make sure you sub and I will see y'all Monday. Peace.
The bitch shaking it, showing it. You this, you that. We laughing at them together. Oh. So stop treating these like they mean something.
Let's go to TikTok.